Hello, welcome to rad.rides.rides. I am about to show you a little bit of footage from Avon Valley's Fear Summer Frights event. But I thought I'd just give a little context before I show anything or give my review. I had spent pretty much the entire day at Oakwood theme park as part of an event with your experience guide, and I was absolutely knackered. And actually, by the time I got to Fear, there was so much to take in and so much going on and so much going through my head, and very little to film outside of the mazes, that I just didn't capture much. But I'll offer my review at the end. So here's the footage from the actual event itself. Enjoy. Well, good evening. I've just spent pretty much an entire day at Oakwood, and now I've driven over to Bristol on the way home to stop off at Avon Valley to Fear Scream Park for their Summer Frights event. I went to my first Scream Park last year with Tully's. I've never been to Avon Valley or Fear Scream Park before, so I'm really excited. Bit nervous about Blackout, but we'll see what it's like. First impressions, and if I like it, we'll come back again for Halloween. Without further ado, let's head in. Feeling slightly lost. There's not much fanfare at all, or any signs or anything showing us where Fear will be. I'm guessing it might be over there with the tents. Let's go have a look. And here we go, found out where to go. Let's head in. Okay, what do you think? So, Fear Summer Frights. I have never been to the Fear Scream Park at Avon Valley before. In fact, I'm quite regular with Halloween events at theme parks such as Fright Nights, Scarefest and the like, but I'd never actually done a Scream Park, a dedicated Halloween event, until last year where I went to Tully Shocktoberfest. That video is on the channel from earlier on in that review. So I'm looking ahead because I loved Tully so much and I keep thinking about it, and I love Halloween, that I've been thinking, what am I going to do? I'm going to better plan out my October this year to kind of maximize what I do. And so when I've got my early bird tickets for Tully's, I've got early bird tickets for the Howl, I'm really looking forward to that. But then I thought, ooh, what is Fear at Avon Valley like? And I'd seen some videos and some reviews, and it looks like it's been a really great event. And so when I heard about their Summer Frights event, I went, ooh, a bit of Summerween. I want to get in on Summer Halloween. And I mean, I hadn't timed it really well because I'd already booked onto the Oakwood event, and I was wiped driving from Pembrokeshire to Bristol, and then knowing that I was then going to have to drive from Bristol home. But I am so glad I went to this event. I thought it was absolutely fantastic taster of what to expect at Fear Scream Park, and it has 100% solidified myself and my partner going back to Fear Scream Park this Halloween. So in case you haven't heard of the event, what happens is you booked a time slot, and then from that point you could collect a wristband, and you would start a journey experience going through their three I've forgotten the name of it, I think it's the New Republic of England mazes, back to back, with a bit of story weaving in between, which was a really nice touch. And there were positives and some slight negatives to the event overall. So I'll start with the positives before I get into any kind of spoilery or any details. I'll leave that towards the end. So, positives. It was great. It was a fantastic atmosphere, beginning to end. Actors roaming around the kind of waiting area before you get to the attractions. Great music playing, bar was available, food was available, there's a selection of merchandise available, which was really cool. And the actual mazes themselves were fantastic. They were quite unique compared to other mazes I've been in. Not necessarily themes, but compared to other mazes I've done in the past, they felt really unique and really interesting. Some of the twists that they added to the mazes were particularly just awesome. But you might think a couple of them might be a little bit gimmicky, but really fantastic overall experience. The fact that you had an actor-led experience from before you got into the first maze all the way until you left the park was phenomenal. You queued up, you got your wristband, you give them a little introduction, a little backstory. I feel like if it wasn't for that backstory and for that storytelling by the actor, I might have been a little confused on how the three mazes kind of linked together, and it was a bit tenuous. It was a bit of a stretch putting them together, but they did link back and forth with some of these actor interactions between before and after the mazes. So you are greeted, you are given a rundown on what you're about to do for your first maze, the context of the area, before being led into the first maze, which was X4 Blackout, which is a twist on the X4 maze that they run every year. After the X4 maze, you were then given a little bit of extra storytelling, a bit of a what were you doing there, you have to get out, and then you're led into the core, and then from the core afterwards you're then questioned further before you're shoved into Vita Nova. And I just thought it was a fantastic way to kind of join it all together, create this fantastic experience beginning to end. Even at points when there might have been a little bit of a wait, they did actually allow you to use some of the extra toilet blocks that they had there. They also had like a food and drink cart as well, in case you were particularly needing to have a little recharge between attractions. You weren't necessarily forced straight into the next one straight away. So I thought the atmosphere was great. I thought the scare mazes were great. I thought the entire experience, the storytelling was fantastic, as well as the services, the actors. Yeah, it was just really great. Although with the fantasticness of having it all linked together, being a pro, it also comes with cons. The line to actually get your wristband was quite long, frankly. I'm not sure why it was timed. It didn't quite feel like they were sticking to strict timings with the wristbands. I'm not sure if it was different earlier in the night because we went quite towards the end of the night, but the line to actually get into the experience was very long. In that waiting, I think about 35-ish minutes from arriving to getting our wristbands and getting in. We didn't, stop and dawdle. There was two of us, so we kind of took it in turns to go to the toilet if we needed to grab a drink, we grabbed a drink, etc. But yeah, there was quite a queue to get in. And then, because of what makes the core so unique, there was a long wait between coming out of X4 Blackout and going into the core. There was a wait. Now, bless the actors, they were doing everything they can to, they didn't just give you a spiel and then just let you stand in a queue. They kept coming back to you, kept talking to you, kept going over it and over it and over it, kept trying to entertain you, trying to immerse you in the world instead of you just standing waiting for a scare maze. But at the same time, it did feel like I was just standing to go into a scare maze, but that's because of a technicality of the maze itself, and because of this large hold up. There was no kind of grand start to the maze, where there's usually a grand start to mazes. You have a little talk when you get through the first door. or which did happen with X4, and it did happen with Vita Nova, and there was clearly a room where it looked like you might have stood and heard something before going through the core, but because of the queue and getting people through, we're pretty much told that as soon as our group was ready and prepared and they'd got enough of us in, they just went, go. You just went straight in and then straight through this room that looked like somewhere where you were probably meant to stop for a bit. After getting out of there, obviously you're then taken out of it a bit as you're getting unready from the core, and then they were really playful, but there clearly wasn't too much of a wait before getting into Vita Nova. It didn't feel like we were queuing, we were just standing in a group, and they were interacting with us, storytelling, having a laugh before it was our time to go in. So it didn't feel like we were queuing for Vita Nova the way that it felt like we were queuing for the core. Now, I don't think I can say much else without going into spoiler territory. Some of them might be minor spoilers, some of them might just give away pretty much the entire maze for you. But just before that, I will probably rank the three mazes. I would go with the core being the weakest of the three, followed by X4, which is a really strong attraction, and then Vita Nova as being the strongest out of the three, personally. Based on my tastes. I know that's very subjective, and I know what scares one person might not scare another, but that was my kind of ranking of the three experiences. I was just quickly editing and then I noticed I forgot one other con, which is spoiler free, is that the merchandise situation. When I booked my tickets, it gave me the option to add on a beanie, and I am an absolute goblin when it comes to merchandise for events and theme parks and such. And so when I was offered, get a beanie, and I'm not sure if it was a discounted price or not, I can't remember what it was that made it so special to order it then, but I was like, yeah, add a beanie. The moment I got in, I was they scanned my QR code to let me in, and then said, and you've got a beanie. Hold on, let me look. And then she looked and she couldn't find the beanie, and she said, try going over to the bar, all the merchandise is there, so go over to the bar and go get your beanie from there. So I went over to the bar and they said, the beanies, yeah, there was a bit of an issue with the beanies. Try going to this woman with a green shirt at admissions to ask about the beanies. I was like, okay. So I went back to a different person to ask about the beanies, and they said that there was an issue with the beanies and they were looking for the beanies. I thought, that's weird that they're looking for beanies when I'd already bought one. She said, you can try again later. So I thought, okay, I'll do the experience and then I'll come back to get my beanie afterwards. This was part of what I was doing whilst queuing at the same time. And then I went through the whole experience. This is a long time later, gone through 3 long mazes with some storytelling in between. And then I went back to the bar and I said, any word on those beanies yet? She said, let me just walkie-talkie this person. She went over to walkie-talkie, and then she might have overshared with me a little bit too much, and said that they had lost the box full of beanies. I don't know how you lose a box full of merchandise. That seems quite odd of a thing to happen, or a bit of a worry, considering the price that they're selling the beanies at. That's a little chunk of profit margin gone by losing a box full of merchandise. And so I was offered, we could ship you your beanie, or you could get a cap instead. And actually, I kind of wish they'd put the caps on the website, because I would have chosen the cap anyway. I wasn't quite sure, because I thought, I'd prefer a beanie because it's, Halloween stuff, but actually it's summer. And what's wrong with sharing a little bit of fear in the summertime? And so I got the cap. I actually quite like it. They had a range of other merchandise available, but that was just a really funny kind of mix up that left me going a little bit, But that was just a small little thing that I forgot to add in earlier, so I'm just adding it in now. Now, spoilers. X4 was turned into X4 Blackout. So what that meant is that during that storytelling part at the start, 1 in every 2 people were given a glow stick, pre-cracked, and you went through, and after giving you a little talk and going through this fantastic elevator scene, I would love to see the behind the scenes of how they did that elevator scene. It felt a bit like we were being picked up by a forklift, which could be what it was, but being picked up and having that elevator and coming out in a different place after quite a jolty, bumpy ride was great. But then you come out of the elevator and it is just pitch black. And when they said it was going to be dark or pitch black, I was like, how dark can a maze get with light leaking or whatever? And it was a summer evening, so the sun had not set yet. It was dark. It was fully pitch black. The only way you could see anything was with your little glow stick, which obviously has a very short throw distance, and so you kind of have to hold it up. I didn't even have one. It was my other half who had a glow stick, so I was in absolutely no control. I could only see things that he could show me with the glow stick, or that people behind or in front could show us. And so there were loads of hidden scares. It kind of felt a bit like Nemesis Subterra if it was actually a real maze. But it was fantastic. I could tell that the theming was really good, and some of the effects and some of the sensory elements of it would have been absolutely fantastic. And I am dying to see that maze with the lights on now, because I could tell how well themed it was with the lights off with just the glow stick, and it was so scary that I really am dying to see it with the lights on. Hopefully it's not blackout for the actual Fear Scream Park in Halloween. I hope it's back to just normal X4. That would be ideal. But yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. Just brilliant scares beginning to end. And then you come out of X4 and then you're greeted by some actors who tell you a little bit about why you're there. You need to escape, you need to go through these tunnels. I kind of almost felt like I knew a little bit more backstory about the toxic water or whatever through actually looking at the mazes descriptions online rather than what I was told. But it was very busy, it was very loud, and it was kind of hard to keep track of what was happening. But then the queuing was because of the waders. If you're not familiar, I'd kept that a secret from my other half, so he was totally surprised. You are asked to put on waders, which was a struggle for me because I'm a big guy. Most of the maze was taking place with you going down some steps and splashing through a foot or so of dirty water. I thought that was a really great concept, and again, some of the theming was excellent, but some of the lighting was perhaps a bit too bright. Actually, it was quite colourful and quite bright, and some of the scares were really well kind of signposted. I kind of saw a lot of it coming. It was, oh, here's another grate with another person behind it. Okay, cool. They're not even going to try to reach for me or whatever. However, there were a couple of actors in there who did a smashing job, going absolutely above and beyond. I felt like there should have been more points where you were walking through water where the actors were actually using the water to scare you, because that's when a couple of the actors actually got me, was when we were actually walking through water, including one actor nearly hanging off half upside down from some kind of pipe near the ceiling, and then just launching himself off a pipe and causing a big scene and splashing everywhere. So only got slightly wet, slight splash, but that was a really strong moment in that maze. And I feel like that is such a great concept for a maze. It's so uncomfortable to be walking through water. You feel like you can't escape as well as when you're just walking, and you feel like you go extra slow, you feel a bit more trapped. And so I kind of wish that is developed a little bit more. I hope that you know, they keep the concept for the core, but perhaps develop it a little bit more. However, I know it's quite a few years old at this point. I know some of the mazes are. After getting out of the core, you're then questioned about being rebels or whatever. By that point, my adrenaline was so high, I was really uncharacteristically brave and cheeky and having a really good laugh. I was just having such a fantastic time going back to back to back with all this adrenaline rush and all this storytelling and scene setting, that I was just really getting into it, and really having a laugh with strangers and with the actors, and just had a great time. And then going into Vita Nova, I knew that it was an individual experience and you get split up no matter what. You're split up from the people you're with, totally randomized. I felt like again, we're in spoilers, so it doesn't matter if I say this, but in that holding area where you've got someone shouting and asking questions, I think that's a great idea. However, it takes a little too long sometimes. I felt like I was getting a little bit bored, only slightly. And by the time I started to feel like I was going to get bored of standing there looking at a wall, trying to answer questions in time, I had to answer a question halfway through the question in order to get sent through. I felt like I was starting to get that point where I was thinking, am I going to get bored? And then I was luckily sent through up the stairs to start Vita Nova. That is the Smiler, the horror maze, and I mean that in a really complimentary way. It was so atmospheric, it was so trippy. I am usually really fine going through horror mazes with someone that I know and trust. On my own, I was freaking out so bad. Whenever I'm separated and I'm on my own, that's when I start to get really scared at a horror maze. And so I was constantly on edge. I was hugging myself, like wrapping myself around my body, yelping around every corner with all the actors jumping out. There's strobe lighting, the fogs, the mirrors, all the effects were just so immersive and so fantastic. I had such a brilliant time. And then there was, a checkpoint. I saw my other half. We were both having to stare at the wall. But then they came into that room after me and apparently left the room ages after me. I was again on my own, and then right in that final corridor with that fog, it's so disorientating. Again, I think it was a corridor. However, talking to my other half about it, it seems like a much bigger room. I was just lucky enough to be able to find a wall and trace the wall out, whereas some people were, I guess, turning around and hitting walls and feeling like they were at dead ends and being stuck in there for a lot longer. That was such a stunning end to a maze. It felt a lot like the ending to the Coven at Tully's Shocktoberfest, with high fog, ambient lighting, the actors knowing where you are but you not knowing where they are. And again, I mean that's a compliment. That was the best bit of the Coven 13 at Tully's Shocktoberfest. And I had such a rip-roaringly scary time going through Vita Nova. And then I came out and I was on my own, and some people were getting picked to stand against another fence to potentially be sent through Vita Nova a second time. I was kind of mildly jealous, actually. I would have loved to have been picked to be bullied enough to go through a second time, but I wasn't. But I did actually have to stand outside of Vita Nova for a good 10 plus minutes until my other half actually finally came out. I was starting to actually get really worried at one point. I was like, where on earth is he? Has he come out before me? Has he gotten lost? is he doing okay? So I was actually really nervous waiting, and then I was, you know, some of the actors were coming over, jeering at me, making comments, whatever, but it all added to it, and he finally came out, and he wasn't picked on to go through again. But then the actors were chasing us out. I was having some of the kind of security or police or whatever it is in that story barking at me to jog lightly, you're not jogging light enough, and then faster. But then I also had the rebels going, don't listen to them. It was just a fantastic time overall, and I'm so glad that I did it, no matter how tired I was. After that day as a whole, I did end up with bruises. I think that was a mix of having it was mostly on my knees. I think it was from having my knees bashed on Megaphobia, from going on that 10 times in one day, and then from having to crawl through a tunnel in Vita Nova. But it was so worth it, and I've come back so ecstatic about that event, and I've talked to it about everyone, and how, because, you know, some people at my work are really interested in some of these kind of Halloween attractions. I've got a good Halloween fan base at work, you know, actually really bigging up this event, and I am so excited to add that to my itinerary for October, to get the full experience with. I'm 100% doing all 3 mazes again. I really want to do all 3 mazes again, as well as seeing, I think, is it Malefica? I'm not sure whether or not they're changing the clown maze and the possession, if that's still there. I know some people get tired of them having the same thing over and over, but obviously for someone who hasn't done it before and has heard such fantastic things about an intimate horror experience show like that, judging by how much I love the mazes, I am super stoked to go back. And I think, you know, that Tully's probably wins for scope and size. However, the intense focus on those 3 attractions, and the precision with the scares and the theming and the atmosphere and what everyone was doing. Everyone was working super hard at that event. I don't know, it's really close between those 2 for me, and obviously I have the Howl to experience. I have an early bird ticket for that, but I think Tully's and Fear Scream Park are probably gonna battle it out for me in October to see which one's the best, because I think but then again, I thought Stitches was amazing last year, so maybe Fright Nights might come out on top. I don't know. That's actually thrown a spanner into the works, because it was just announced today as I'm recording this. I've taken a bit of time to think about it. It was announced today that they have a 4th maze. As much as I was kind of dying to see trailers be replaced, I'm actually kind of happier that they've added rather than replaced, because 3 felt a little slim for Fright Nights, and so I'm happy that they're adding a 4th for Fright Nights. So it's going to be duking out, I think, between Fright Nights, whatever they pull up at Scarefest, Alton Towers probably, but probably Shocktoberfest and Fear for a pure Scream horror maze experience. It's going to be those 2 kind of duking it out, as well as whatever the Howl has to offer, that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Anyway, I have talked way longer than planned, but I am just so enthused by this event, and so incredibly sold on going in October, that I just felt the need to ramble on a little bit longer than I planned. But anyway, thank you. If you've enjoyed this, please do subscribe. It really helps out. I mostly do theme park stuff, but obviously when it comes to October, it's Halloween stuff, and I'm hoping to really flesh out my Halloween experience this year, because it's my favourite season, and I'm just so up for doing more and more. So please subscribe, like, comment. It'd be really helpful. I have an Instagram that I'm more active on. I'll link that in the information below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching if you got to this point. And Halloween, get yourself down to Fierce Screen Park at Avon Valley. See ya.